Hello and welcome to Michell Consulting's webinar series for our Michell University. Today we're going to be working with SAP Business One, and we're going to talk about the form settings and setting inside each document. This is referred to as document settings or form settings. For purposes of the demo today, we're going to be working with SAP Business One version 8.82, but this functionality is available in all the versions. So let's talk about the form settings and what we can do to customize the screen for our different users. You'll notice that when you're working in SAP Business One, you'll see an icon here known as the form settings. This allows us to go in and actually change what we see and how we see information on the screen. So for example, here we're in the main menu. You can see we're looking at all our modules. So for example, if we go to Sales and AR, we can see we have something here called an AR invoice plus down payment. So we have users that don't use a lot of this functionality, so we want to actually take it off the menu. What we can do is we can click on our form settings and we can do a variety of things. What we can do here is we can, for example, let's say we don't even use sales opportunity, so we want to just take the entire thing off the menu. We can do that. We can also click on Sales and AR, and we can look at our AR invoice plus down payment, and we can deselect it so they're no longer visible. We update this, and we click OK, and we can see now that we do not see the Sales and AR on the menu, and if we, the sales opportunity on the menu. If we go to Sales and AR, you can see we no longer see the AR invoice plus payment. Now, all this is being controlled with authorization, so you can set these form settings so people can actually enter the information or not. You can always go to the modules, and here you get the actual module. So, for example, here you can see the sales opportunities, and here you can also see it this way. But again, form settings is nice because you can actually turn a lot of stuff off or just show the stuff that we are actually using. And once again, all I do is I activate the main menu, and I click on my form settings, and I have all the information here. I can easily just do that to reset everything back on. So again, I can collapse and I can expand all to make it easier this way. I can also apply any authorizations that we talked about within the system. So authorizations allow us in SAP, instead of using passwords, basically people are authorized or not authorized to do certain functionality. That's how we do it on the main menu. We can also do this in some other places. We can do it in the actual searches as well as the documents. So let's open up a, for example, let's open up a business partner, and let's go to the business partner master data. So here we have our business partner master data, and here we can, if we put an asterisk and we press find, we open up a search window. And we can see now that we have this search window in a unique way. We have our BP code, our name, and our address, and so on. Now, once we have this open, we can modify this by going again into the form settings. So if we click on the form settings, and again, let's say we want to move some stuff around. So we want the business partner name to be first, and then the code second. What I can do is I would go here, and I would just turn this one off because I can't have them both. And I would go here to BP code, and I would go here to BP name. And then this display is what you see here. So I'm just going to put, I'm going to call this the BP name, or I can even just put name itself. Again, whatever you'd like to call it. And then this one here, we're just going to change this to the BP code. And again, we can also add information here, so you can see that we can go down, and let's say we want to look at a bill to address or information along here. So we can go into an address type. We click update. Now when we cancel and go back in, so let's go back into our find. Again, you can see that I now have the name first and then the code, and you can see I added this, whatever this field was right here. Okay. This is important, again, how you want to search, and this is now system-wide. So anywhere I look for the customers or the BPs, they'll come up in this order. The reason why we do this is because the find here defines what we look in here. So since we're now looking by name, if I was to put, let's say, an E, I would get the business partners that start with an E. That's why I don't have to double-click on this code here. If I click on this code, then what I can do is I can then search that code. So if you notice, when I come in here, let's go out, and let's come back in. By definition, I'm on this BP name. So as I start typing in, for example, if I type in E, I'm going to get the customer or BP that starts with Earthsaker. If I type C, I'm going to get the customer or BP that starts with C. Now, if I want to search by the code, I can double-click here, and now the find is for this field. So now when I type, for example, an L, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to find BP that starts with L, like this one. I'm going to find the actual code, and so on. So if I was to go to, again, contact, and I would type in an S, again, I would get the contacts that start this way. So this is nice depending on your business. You know, we can actually define all this information, and it's just a matter of opening the search window, going into our form settings, and adding what we want. So, and if we want to just clear it, we can do this, and so on. We can also go and let's put the account balance, and we're going to call this balance. And again, we're going to click OK. So I need to get out because I've actually modified that table. So let me go back in again. And let's put account balance. And we're going to call it balance. Let me go all the way out because I've already done it twice. So let me just go back out and go back in again. And we're going to go back here. I'm going to put account balance. And we're going to call this balance. We just got to go in and out because I've been popped and opening the table so many times. So now when we go in, we can see if we go to our find and we put our asterisk, now we have that information. Another thing you can do here, and this sometimes people do this by mistake, and it becomes a you can group this information, and then you can go different ways. If you notice that when you go into the settings, you have this grouping. So you got to be careful how you group this because you normally want to group things that are the same. Like, for example, the terms you may want to group because typically the BP names and codes are going to be unique as well as the address. But if I go here to the codes or the terms and I group this and I click Update and I go back in, you'll see what's happening is I have this now. So this is a typical, we get this on our support desk a lot of times. People accidentally group it, and then they say, I lost all my searches. But no, what we did is we grouped. So now, because we have terms, we're grouping all the cash basis here. We're grouping all the 2% here and all the net 30s here. This could be valuable for, again, depending on how you have your information defined, because if you want to work with something like this, you want to group. Some people, what they do is they do the types of customers. So let's just go in here and take that off. And we want to do a customer type. Let's see what the field is. So let's say we have, like, for example, customer groups here. See that? We may want to go and do that. So we want to click in here and go to our form settings, and let's find our groups. And you have to kind of find the names. It's not customer groups. It would be BP groups or just groups. Group code. Here we go. And we're going to call this group or type, let's call it. And again, we're going to group this here. and make it visible. So when we update this, so we cancel, now we go back in, and you can see that we have a nice little grouping. Again, some people like to do this because of the nature of their business. So this is nice. So now instead of searching all my business partners, I want to say, oh, okay, I'm looking for somebody who's a distributor. So I'm going to click on distributor. And again, I have these two. And this, once we set this, is unique, so you'll see this throughout the system. All I have to do is go like this, and I've selected that person. Okay, so let's see how that works in other menus. Once we've set that now, anytime we search for the business partner, we're going to get that search. So now let's go into a document. So let's go to Sales and AR, and let's go to Sales Order. And what I'm showing in these documents will work for all documents. So I can do this for all my sales documents as well as my purchase documents. So we're going to open up a sales order. Okay, and now we're at our customer. So if we click here or we tab, okay, again, since we defined that searching for the BP types, we have it here as well. So this thing, when we do it this way, we do it inside these searches. It's for everywhere. So everywhere I'm going to search for a business partner. So every time I search for a customer, they're going to come up here. And again, I can just do the same thing and select. Okay. And then if I do that in AR or purchase orders, again, since I'm always searching the BP, which the vendors are also BPs, I'm going to get this same thing. So I'm going to get my vendors this way. And that's going to be unique for each one. And again, I can just search it this way. Those are setting up for everything. What we do inside the marketing documents here is for the individual document itself. So let's take a look at that. So what we've done is we've seen how we can do the settings. So we saw how we can go to the search for the business partner here, and we can do that search. And again, that search we can do everywhere. We can also do it, for example, if we want to do it on the financial side. So we want to go to financials, let's say in journal entries. Here, when we tab, again, we're searching by account number and account name. We may want to do the same thing. It's just easier for us to do the names, because obviously if I type, say, an A here, okay, I'm not going to get any numbers that begin with A. I would have to do the same thing. I would have to double-click on the name here and then put my letter. So I can do the same thing. I can just click here, and I can change this to setting it up. So I can switch the name and format code. Once I do this, every time I search for the general ledger or the GL account, I'm going to have this search. So we can do the same thing. We're just going to blank out the format code. We're going to put the format code here. We're going to put the account name here. And again, we're just going to account name, and we're going to call it account code. Same thing, we click update. Okay, we do a tab, and again, we're doing this. And you notice here also you see a little arrow by default, we're in ascending order. Okay, we can also set that. So if we do this, and we make it descending, we update. We're going to cancel. Let's go back in, and you can see now we're descending. So again, we can control that. So that setting would be everywhere we see LGL account code. Right, so that's on those are the global ones. Now let's look at the actual marketing documents themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up sales and AR, and I'm going to go into a sales order. And when I open this up, you're going to see here I have information here. You notice I have item and item description and quantity and all this information here. All right, so what I can do is a couple things. Now if I go to the form settings, you're going to see I'm going to get this. And I'm going to get 3 types of information. I'm going to get the actual document defaults. So you can see here on the document, this is the default for the document. So this document, for example, it's always defaulting no sales employee at this moment, and then it'll override with a sales employee. And it's defaulting commission percents and so on in warehouses. You can also have these two here. You have the table and the row. The information you see available in both the table and the row are the same information. The difference being is the table is what you're going to see in the box, and the row would be row detail by clicking on a line. So let's look at that real quick. So let's go to our table, and you can see we have item number and we have item description. So we see here we have, again, item number, and it's visible and active. So that means we can see it and we can enter information. And then we have the item description, which is visible but not active. So that means we can see it, but we can't edit it at all. So you can kind of see there's a blue area here that's kind of grayed out. The same with this information here. So what we can do is we can add information here. We can also move things around. So let's say like we have this discount and a unit price. So we can have unit price, discount, and price after discount. We may want to move this around so we can grab the unit price. We can hold it and we can drop it below the discount. So now we're going to have discount unit price instead of unit price discount. We click OK, and you can see how that change took place right here. We can go into the form settings, and if we want to put that back, we can just grab it and drop it. So this is what we're looking at. And typically what you would put in the table are the fields that you use every day. Again, you don't want to put a lot of these fields because you don't want to clutter up the window. Like let's say we don't need this one here. We just need kind of this type of information. And there's things that we don't really use every day. Like let's say units of measure, we don't always use it, but we may need to use it. Then what we can do is we can go into the row format for this. The row format, what we can do is you can see we have a lot of things opened here, so we can do the same thing. We can have stuff that's visible and active, like the type here is visible and active. The tax code is visible and active. So you see we have a tax code that's visible and active here, but the tax code is not visible and active here. Okay, that's because we don't really have to touch the tax code that's coming from the customer, but there may be a situation where we need to change the tax code. So let's see how that works. Let's go here and then let's create a customer here. Let's grab Norm, and you can see this information is coming up because I'm searching business partners. And here we're going to put an item. And again, you can see here that now if I tab, you can see how I skip over the item description. I can't access the item description. I can, because this is visible but not active. So I have this information here. Now, if you notice, let's just continue on. We don't have any stock. Okay, so we've entered that information here, and you notice that now if we double-click on the line, we're going to get the detail. So now we're looking at the detail. And if you notice on that detail, see the tax code? We made that visible and active. So we can change the tax code because here the system's calculating the tax of $9, and this is supposed to be tax exempt. So we're just going to double click, and we can go to our tax code, and we can change that to exempt. Now you can see there's no tax. We just changed it to tax exempt. So the difference being is the table is what you see in this screen, and the detail is everything else. So when you do the detail by double-clicking on the line, you get the information here. And again, for example, the GL account, you can see this is visible but not active because these you can't get into. I made it that way. But again, these are things I may just need to see while I'm working. Every now and then I may have to check the ship to description information or certain information down here that I normally don't use on the order. Okay? Again, it just makes it easier on the screen. And how we did that is by going into here and going into the form settings. And again, we have our table, which is what you see in the actual form itself in this area here. And we have the row. And again, what we can do is if we want to move these, it's very simple. We can just grab it and we can drag it like this. and move all this information around here like that. So in this case, the first thing now we're going to see is the gross profit base price. So if we double click in the detail, we'll see the first thing we see is the gross profit base price. So again, this is nice, and this is actually saved for the user as well as the form. So this is good because me as a user, I want to set my information a certain way. That way when I log in, I get what I see in the way I enter the data. And again, this holds true in all the documents. So for example, if we go to purchases here and we go to AP invoice, this also holds true. We also remember the option of doing it for the service side. And the same thing, once we switch this to service, now when we click on the form settings, we're going to get obviously the things related to that. We're going to see GL accounts and names versus items. If I was to flip this back to item and click on the form settings, you'll see I get things related to item like item code and item description. But a lot of times I have AP invoices that are service, like I have to enter the rent and utility bills. So what I'm doing is I need to access general ledger information. So once I turn this to service, again I click my form settings, and it's here. And this is all controlled with authorizations. You can have, once you set these, you can set it up where people don't have authorizations to do it. You can also copy this information too once we set it up. What happens is that a lot of times we have, let's say we have 20 people entering orders on order entry, and we don't want to go each time. So what we can do is we can actually go and set it up and then copy it for user. And how we do that is we go to administration, we go to setup, general, and we go to the users, and you have this copy form setting. So let's say here I'm going to go find, so I'm logging in as the manager, Jason. So what I can do is once I create all my form settings for this login manager, I can copy the manager's form settings to whoever I want. So I can copy the manager's form settings to say Bob and John. Once I do that, you'll see it's going to go through and it's going to copy the form settings for those two. Take a few minutes because there's probably a lot of form settings, but it'll actually go through and create the form settings. So you can do it this way. So the nice thing about it is that the form settings for the marketing document can be set up for one user, and then that one user can be copied to several other users. Okay, I can't copy because I'm running an add-on, so I would have to just turn my add-on off and do that. But you get the point of canceling it. And this is normally done when people are off the system. You can set it up that way. And again, there are authorizations. So if you're a super user, like the manager's a super user, I can actually go into authorizations. And if you look here in authorizations, so for example, let's look at, say, Bob. We can search form settings. And actually, it's under, let's find it. There's document settings here. So for example, I can go here to document settings, and I can say Bob has no authorizations to change document settings, and he has no authorizations to edit the tables. So that way he can't go in and do what I did. So you can create that for your users, and then what you do is you just go into your individual users and give them no authorizations. Okay, so let's recap what we talked about today. We're working with SAP Business One version 8.82, and we're talking about document settings and search settings. This holds true for all versions of SAP. So if you're on an older version, you can do the same thing. The settings are done here by the form settings up top, and there's a couple ways of doing it. You can actually set your searches. So in this case, we went to Business Partners, Business Partner Master Data. And if I do an asterisk and I search, I have this information here. And again, once I have this window open, I just click. In this case, we're going to take off the group. We can move these around. We can add whatever we want on here. We can change the order of ascending and descending. Once I do that and I click Update, I cancel and go back in. Again, I'm back to what it was this way. So this is what I'm seeing in the screen. And again, that holds true whatever we search. So that would be a business partner, let's say. We can do that with any of our searches. We can do that with the item master. Again, everything is the same here. We just can go to Item Master. We can do a wildcard search, and same information. You can, again, change all the information. And this would be a global change. Once I do this, everywhere I search the item, it's going to come up this way. So if I'm searching items in the Item Master, or I'm searching items in marketing documents, I'm going to get this screen. Just like the business partners. Once I change this main window search, these global searches, everywhere I search a BP code, I'm going to get that same thing, just like we did with the GL accounts. The others are actually within the marketing documents themselves, and those are unique to the document as well as the user. So for example, in sales order, you can see now when I tab, I'm going to get back the way it was before because I took that grouping off. And in here, you have, for the information here, you can go to the form settings. You have the table, it's what you see in the box, and the row would be the row detail. So if we call up an order that we have, you can see here that what we're seeing in the table is just these fields. And if we double click on the line, we get our line detail. So you can see things like the tax code and all that stuff. This can be visible and active, as well as this information being visible and active. You can see the item description is visible but not active, and certain things are not active, like the price after discount and so on. And again, that's just a matter of going into the form settings. So we have our table. So we can see we have the item description as visible but not active, which means we can see it, we can't modify it. We have the quantity as obviously visible and active. We need to modify the quantity, and so on. And then we have our rows, which is the detail. All that information could be set up. It's also by the user. So for example, I'm logged in as the manager. So every time I log in as manager, I'm going to get my form settings. And what I can do is if I have a lot of people I want to do this to, I can set the form settings for one user. Then I can go into administration, setup, general, and call up the user. So if we're going to search for the manager, and we can copy the manager's form settings to whoever else we want to do this. As you saw before, obviously people, they need to be off the system when you do this kind of information to update. And again, this is all controlled with authorization. So what we can also do is once you set it up, if you don't want users actually changing it, you as a super user can go into the authorizations. And for example, we selected Bob here, or Bob. And again, edit document tables, you can see here, and document settings. So what we're doing is we can go here and we can turn off the authorization. So Bob is not authorized to edit the document table, so he can't make any changes. All right, well that concludes our session today on SAP Business One and the document settings. This webinar is being recorded. It'll be available on our website. You can visit us at www.michellgroup.com to view this, plus our other webinar series. And we thank you for your time.